To weigh in, former Congresswoman and member of the Independent Women's Forum Board of Directors, Nan Hayworth, and business and economics professor at the King's College right here in New York City, Brian Bremberg. Good morning to both of you. Thank you for joining us on a big news day.
Good morning.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Nan, I want to begin with you. You grew up in the steel industry. You even worked in a steel mill.
I did.
Do you agree with what Jeff Flake is saying, that this is going to damage the economy, or are you encouraged by the negotiating tactics of President Trump?
You know, Lauren, I view this, given what President Trump has done already to help our economy and put Americans back to work, as we know, with deregulation and tax cuts that have made an incredible difference. I view what he's doing with tariffs as a negotiating stance to deal with trade policies that have all too often, unfortunately, put American workers at a disadvantage. The concerns are legitimate that tariffs can be a very tricky and double-edged sword because, of course, retaliation could occur, and some other trading countries are threatening that kind of thing. So I think it does have to be very carefully administered. But we also know that Senator Flake has a particular political rivalry with the president. So I think the kind of language that Senator Flake is using is not terribly helpful.
All right, yeah, and there is wiggle room, and that's what encouraged investors yesterday, Brian. The breaking news this morning, Brian, is that China, now strongly opposing these tariffs, they're calling on the U.S. to withdraw them. I'm curious how this plays out, because I feel like Elon Musk of Tesla fame has the president's ear right now. He tweeted yesterday, and the president did reference these tweets. He tweeted, "I am against import duties in general, but the current rules make things very difficult. It's like competing in an Olympic race wearing lead shoes, that China is taxing us, our cars, for instance, our imports at 25%. Are we going to see a reciprocal tax here? Are you worried of a big trade war with a major country like China?"
Well, it's not surprising that China doesn't like this policy at all. I don't think we'll see a major trade war, but clearly the Trump administration is aiming at China. China is, in many ways, a bad actor when it comes to trade. They violate intellectual property. They put up big barriers for U.S. companies doing business in China, and the president wants to get some movement there, and that's why he's coming out with big tariffs. I think you're going to see a lot of exemptions for allied countries. That's why he talked about flexibility. But when it comes to China, I think he's going to press the issue because ultimately that's where you have the biggest room for improvement. And it seems like unless you talk tough, unless you put your money where your mouth is, you're not going to get China to move.
And in this digital age, Brian, intellectual property is a lot bigger than steel and aluminum, especially when it comes to China. Nan, there's a Marist poll that's out. It says 42% of Americans think the tariffs will hurt the economy. So 42% see this as a bad thing. 27% say it will help the U.S. economy. What do you make of what this is going to do?
Well, I think, Lauren, it expresses, we can see these numbers, the concerns that people have that tariffs can be a very blunt instrument unless they are carefully administered. And also, a lot of times, unfortunately, they do get withdrawn. So they have a certain longevity and they have a certain usefulness potentially, but they have to be wielded with a surgeon's precision. So I'm glad that the president is listening to folks who have expressed concerns. I think that's why you're hearing this week that already, as Brian just mentioned, Mexico and Canada have been exempted from these tariffs. They are our friends. And yes, the focus should be on China because there's a lot of bad, unfair stuff happening with China. And our leverage is increased the more prosperous we are, which is why the president has done such a brilliant job bringing us back to work and growing our economy.
And that Marist poll, Brian, also found that the president's approval rating is now at the highest since he took office at 42%. What do you make of that?
Well, he's probably pretty happy about that. Look, he's been out on front. I mean, the tax reform is popular. We're seeing results from that. Even on these tariff issues, whether you like the tariff or not, he's out in front, and he seems to be wanting to take a strong stand for the American worker. Now, you got to be careful with tariffs, as Nan just pointed out, but the point is he's out there stating his case, making his case, going after countries that people feel like have been unfair to the U.S., and at the end of the day, I think voters like that, so it doesn't surprise me that you've seen his numbers go up a little bit.
Voters, that's how voters feel, and investors this morning are saying we like the exemptions and we're waiting for the jobs report. Brian, Nan, thank you so much. Have great weekends.
Thanks, Lauren. You too.